everybody, and welcome to Cherry Hill Squares, which I now call Cherry Hill Rectangles because there are only two of us. Um, we are not geometrically challenged here. We know that these are rectangles. I'm Lexi Rigdon, and with me is Cynthia Grob. And today we're going to be just talking about name changes in family court, which are not necessarily as simple as you might expect. There are different procedures for different name changes. And so, Cynthia, I want to start with you. What name changes are a popular question with clients? Obviously, there's an emotional attachment to a last name. What questions have you gotten from clients recently about a name change?
Well, interestingly, you mentioned name changes in family court, and one of the most prevalent places I see it come up is when spouses are divorcing and or they already are divorced. And one of the spouses, most recently, I had a client come to me who had not changed their name at divorce, but they were going to be receiving a honor and really wanted to have that connected to their birth name as opposed to a married name that really didn't have that kind of emotional pull. And this individual was pretty far out from their divorce. We're talking, more than 5 years from their divorce. But our court system, under the court rules, has a process. It's Rule 4:72-1. And that process allows a spouse or a person, a party to a divorce, to file a motion through the court and seek a name change on the divorce docket. So it does have the parties, it pulls the parties back into the family court, which ordinarily for a ministerial issue, as you're likely to discuss, you don't necessarily go to family court. But in this instance, it requires it's the same process as a post-judgment motion would be, and the party just has to detail through the motion practice their reasons for their divorce. So the notice only goes in this case to the opposing party or the other party to the divorce, and it doesn't have to trickle out into the public as some of the other processes require. But in this case, parties need to know where their former spouse is, which sometimes is a bit of a challenge, but as long as they can serve their motion on that individual, whether the individual participates or not is irrelevant. Under the courts, under this motion, a person is, under that court rule, a person is entitled to a name change. They just have to get before the court in order to process it.
So, in other words, it really doesn't matter if out of spite your ex says, I don't think you should be able to change your name, right? The judge is going to probably do it anyway.
Absolutely. As if you were getting your name changed at the conclusion of your marriage in the divorce hearing, a party just must certify to the court that they're doing so for personal reasons, that they're not seeking to avoid criminal prosecution or their creditors, which is similar to what the process is outside of the family court. But within the confines of the family court, it is generally speaking, when a person wants to return to their birth name, they can do so by this motion practice. However, if somebody wants to assume a different name, not their birth name or not their name prior to their marriage, then the process in the family court may not cover their goal. Under the specific rule I cited and the statute, a party can only return to the name that they had prior to their marriage. They cannot assume a different name. That's different than when somebody is changing their name incident to the divorce at the divorce hearing. A lot of times at that hearing, people can take on any name that they seek. But this process that I'm talking about, the motion after the fact, it limits the name that somebody will assume.
It's much easier to change your name during a divorce hearing than it is down the line. I mean, that literally, you don't have to plead it. You don't have to put it in your complaint or counterclaim. You could make the decision the day of. Your attorney submits a name change order to the court, pays a $25 fee, and you could even assume. I had a client recently assume her stepfather's last name because she identified with that name more than her actual maiden name. So my advice to clients always is that if you are interested in doing this, just do it in time with the divorce hearing. It's just a lot easier. It's less paperwork, it's less headache, and you get it done. And another thing that clients have to remember is these are not self-executing orders. So after you change your name, it's not like poof, the magic name change fairy all of a sudden you're getting new credit cards in the mail and a new social security card. It's kind of like changing your name when you get married. You have to go to Social Security, change your name there, go to the DMV, change your name there, go to change your name on your passport. Because otherwise these entities won't have any idea you actually changed the name. It'll just be an old dusty court order sitting in a file somewhere. So
Right.
people have to remember that.
And another change that I've realized occurs in with our advent of court happening via a virtual setting is you no longer are issued that order with a gold seal. Previously, we had in order to change your name, you were required a raised seal on the order. Now the court has implemented a process that certifies an order, but doesn't necessarily have the order have the gold seal. And because of this change in processes, there's additional fees involved. But at least it is still a process that can be accomplished, and it goes rather smoothly if you're able to follow the process.
And I have had people ask me, I'm sure you have too, can I make my spouse change their last name? I don't want my spouse associated with my last name. No, you can't. So no matter how much you hate your spouse, you cannot make him or her, kind of trying to be, there are men that change their name too. I have a client who changed his last name to, along with his new wife. You cannot make somebody change their name back. So no matter how much you dislike them.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that if it were only as simple as filing a motion in the family court to change a name, but there are different procedures for different types of name changes. For example, you're trying to change the name of your child, you have to file a separate complaint in the family court. You cannot file it under your divorce docket. And if you want to change your name along with your child, you also file it in that fashion. But if you're just an adult who wants to change your name, for any reason, it's a different procedure. You have to file it in the civil division, and that's much more onerous because you actually have to publish it and make people aware of the name change. So those are two sort of different procedure. Actually, we've sort of outlined 4 different procedures, right? Changing it incident to a divorce, changing it after a divorce with your divorce docket, changing it for a child or with your child, and then changing it just as an adult who wants to assume a different name. And then there's the other added wrinkle of what happens if your marriage license or your birth certificate has a misspelling on it. That does happen. And that is not really a court issue. That is more, you need to go to the state registrar of vital statistics and figure it out there. So there are different procedures for all of these name changes that clients need to be aware of.
Yeah. And I think the important part is also, and that's it, you've already alluded to it, it is ensuring that once you have that order in hand, you take the necessary steps to effectuate what that order means, because it's not going to result in a change. Same thing we talked about for an adult, but the same thing goes for a child. A name change order that changes a child's name doesn't change that child's name for the purpose of their future legal documents. So you have to follow through with the process. You have to go to the state and have their birth certificate changed to be in line with the name change order, so that from that point forward, when the child then becomes of driving age or wants to apply for a passport, they have all of their documents in line.
Yep, exactly. Nothing can be easy, right, Cynthia? But that's why we're here.
Right, exactly.
Well, thank you for tuning into Cherry Hill Squares / Rectangles. And it was good to see you as always. And I guess we'll see everybody next time.
Perfect.